in particular foodstuffs. This would lead to worker-peasant cooperatives who will be the primary organs for satisfying the needs of town and countryside. The agrarian question is of particular importance to the Russian anarchists, who come from a country where the rural peasantry made up 85% of the whole population. They begin addressing this issue by re-emphasizing that just like the factories, the land belongs to the whole of the working class, not to individual peasants, and cannot be bought or sold. However, they state that the peasantry is accustomed to working the land with individual methods. They state that collective farming is the most ideal form of agricultural production, but given their particular historical circumstances, it might not be immediately feasible. So they state that the ultimate pattern of land tenure and land use will be determined by the revolutionary peasantry itself. Of course, once again, barring the buying, selling, or leasing of land, or the exploitation of one's labor by another. Recognizing the importance of food production, the platformists stress the importance of intensive propaganda among the peasants on behalf of communist land tenure. With regard to the defense of the revolution, the platformists state that the most critical juncture in the social revolution is not the moment when authority is overthrown, but the time thereafter when the forces of the ousted regime unleash a general offensive against the workers, when the gains that have been achieved must be safeguarded. They advocate an army based on the following basic principles. One, the class nature of the army. Obviously it needs to be made up of the proletariat and the peasantry. Two, voluntary military service. All coercion is excluded in the manner of the defense of the revolution. Three, revolutionary self-discipline. Voluntary military service and revolutionary self-discipline are mutually complementary in every way and serve to make the revolutionary army psychologically stronger than any state army. And four, total subordination of the revolutionary army to the worker and peasant masses, as represented by the general worker and peasant bodies throughout the land, which will be created by the masses at the moment of revolution and given the task of overseeing the country's economic and social life. They also stress that voluntary service is not meant in the narrow sense of a struggle waged by worker and peasant forces against a local enemy, without coordination in the shape of an overall operational plan, each unit attacking on its own initiative. When they are fully developed, partisan action and tactics in the revolution should be guided by a common military and revolutionary strategy. Like any war, civil war can only be waged successfully by the workers if two principles fundamental to all military activity are observed: unity of operational planning and unity of common command. The most critical time for the revolution will be when the bourgeoisie marches as an organized force against the revolution and will require the workers to have recourse to these principles of military strategy. In the final section of the organizational platform, D.L. Truda puts forward its principles of anarchist organization. The first, of course, is unity of theory. Basically, if you want to be in this general organization, you should probably agree with their tenets, class war, all that kind of stuff. Two, unity of tactics, or the collective method of action. So we should everybody in this should struggle together as an organized force, as opposed to emphasizing individual initiative. And third, collective responsibility. This means that the entire union is responsible for the political action of each member, but each member is also responsible for the activity of the union. Each member should participate in the collective decision-making and also respect the decisions of the collective. And they say that the practice of operating on one's own individual responsibility must be strictly condemned and rejected within the ranks of the anarchist movement. And then the fourth principle is federalism, which basically, federalism, they say, means the free agreement of individuals and entire organizations upon the collective endeavor in order to achieve a common objective. As a result, the federalist type of anarchist organization, while acknowledging the right of every member of the organization to independence, freedom of opinion, personal initiative, and individual liberty, entrusts each member with specific organizational duties, requiring that these be duly performed and that decisions jointly made must also be put into effect. In order to coordinate the activity of all the union's affiliated organizations, a special body is to be established in the form of an executive committee of the union. And the following tasks would be part of that executive committee. the implementation of decisions made by the union, overseeing the activity and theoretical development of the individual organizations in keeping with the overall theoretical tactical line of the union, and monitoring the general state of the movement and maintaining functional organizational ties between all the member organizations in the union, as well as with other organizations. This executive committee is the subject of a lot of controversy amongst anarchists. Malatesta in particular thought that basically sowed the seeds for it becoming an authoritarian type organization. Anyways, that's it. Any questions?
Maybe one question. You mentioned the idea of some anarchists who emphasize just individual responsibility, don't want to like act on their own, not really be part of an organization. Do you see that as, even though this was written, maybe 80, 90 years ago, something like that, do you see that same tendency, these days amongst anarchists? Or?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I think those ideas are even, well, I guess I wasn't alive back then, but they seem even more prominent today with things, like Crime Think, or, like especially with the anti-organizational ideas of like different insurrectionary anarchists and things like that. I mean, yeah, it's definitely still prevalent today.
Do you have any sense for why maybe that kind of strand of anarchism tends to be a little bit more prominent these days, as opposed to some of the ones that do organized collective action, like class struggle, things like that, as opposed to just maybe lifestyleism or living outside the system and kind of calling it good at that?
As to why that's more prominent today?
Yeah. Not that you need to have an answer necessarily, but curious if you have thoughts on it.
I guess it's more fun that way. Like, it's probably more fun. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess probably the people that are involved in that don't have a real good understanding of like class struggle or capitalism. Like, they probably, they've never read any. Well, maybe they've read some Bakunin, maybe they've read some Marx, but it seems like most of them just kind of get their information from, like Crime Think or things like that, where they're just like, yeah, this is really cool. Like, we should all become dropouts. That kind of thing.
It's kind of more fad in a way.
In a sense, yeah, I think.